In no particular order, here are a few of the most dangerous attractions people actually do. Number 9. Yungas Road. The Bolivian city of La Paz is notable for being one of the world's highest cities. And just for the record, we mean that in terms of elevation. That other honor would probably go to Amsterdam or Denver. Anyway, sitting nearly 12,000 feet above sea level, the altitude in this city is breathtakingly high. So as you can probably imagine, getting there can prove rather tricky. North Yungas Road, which connects La Paz and Coroico, has been crowned the world's most dangerous road, at least according to the Inter-American Development Bank, which, I mean, who else are you gonna trust with this kind of thing? With nicknames such as Death Road, Road of Death, and Road of Fate, you know this thing isn't messing around. By some estimates, up to 300 people die every year making this journey, which seems like a lot. The road has been featured on the History Channel and the BBC for its danger. The sick irony of it all is that when leaving this highly elevated city via the North Yungas Road, the road actually goes up. Ascending to some 15,260 feet, the road winds around steep cliffs and valleys, with very few guardrails or anything. The narrow road is about the size of a single car width, so that probably thoroughly jacks up what's an already very precarious situation. Given the decent chance of providing an awful death, the Yungas Road attracts plenty of thrill seekers each year. Mountain bikers in particular treat this death trap as a mecca of sorts. First built in the 1930s by POWs, a series of improvements were made in 2006. This included widening the lanes, concrete barriers, and bypasses of the most dangerous section made the road a bit safer. A bit being the operative word. Number 8. Caminito del Rey. Generally speaking, hiking can be a healthy activity. Think about it. You're out and about, getting exercise, exploring nature, and maybe learning a thing or two. But sometimes the path less traveled is less traveled for a reason. Take Caminito del Rey for instance. Tucked away in a remote part of southern Spain, this path serves as a mecca of sorts for thrill seekers, rock climbers, and people with a death wish. Steep canyons towering over raging rapids, narrow pathways, and poor upkeep make this path a serious hazard for anyone brave or foolish enough to take it on. Dating back to 1901, Caminito del Rey, or the King's Little Pathway as it translates to, is considered by some to be the most dangerous path in the world. While it's just under 2 miles long, it's 2 miles of poorly maintained concrete, steel beams, and neglect. And one misstep can prove fatal. Originally designed to provide hydroelectric plant workers a pathway to move materials between surrounding waterfalls, the path later served as a place where morons journeyed for adventure. It was so dangerous that 5 people died while hiking between 1999 and 2000. Parts of the trail closed so repairs could be made. It reopened in 2015 and was kind of less dangerous, but still pretty dangerous actually. Portions of the pathway are still missing, and parts of the path still rest on rusted steel beams. Long story short, the trails in your city park are probably safer than this. Number 7. Colorado River System. Spanning 1,450 miles across the southwestern U.S. and northern Mexico, the Colorado River is a huge piece of the region's history and culture. Dating back more than 8,000 years ago, Native Americans and nomads used to inhabit the river's basin. Today, it still provides water to some 40 million people. It also contains steep canyons and very fast rapids. Plus, it runs right through the Grand Canyon, so there's that. It's a fairly popular attraction for people to go rafting down the section of the river that runs through the Grand Canyon. While life vests and trained guides generally keep people safe, it's not for the faint of heart. Literally every second of every single day, a ton of water flows through the river, creating very large rapids. Dating back to the 1920s, there have been quite a few deaths by drowning. Plus, the water's cold as all get out, so hypothermia is a very real possibility if you're not careful. Dehydration from hiking in the canyon, heat strokes, and flash floods highlight what can be a very dangerous area. The good news is that the Grand Canyon is maintained by the National Park Services, and they have the resources and expertise to keep people safe, provided people heed good advice and use common sense. Number 6. Kilauea Volcano. Hawaii? Pretty. Volcanoes? Also pretty. But visiting an active volcano, maybe that's not an awesome idea. Of course, Hawaii has long been known for their volcano tours, and under the right circumstances, it can be a fun, safe, and enriching experience. But with Kilauea's recent activity, it's best to stay away. When it began spewing lava on May 3rd, it wreaked havoc on a historic level for about 3.5 months. It wasn't until August 17th that the USGS indicated things may be winding down. Technically, Kilauea has been erupting continuously since about 1983 and has caused considerable property damage. But the Lower Puna eruption in May was, or is, a different animal altogether. It opened dozens of lava vents as lava came pummeling down. After a series of earthquakes and a violent eruption on May 17th, more than 2,000 people were evacuated and up to 700 homes were destroyed. Humans and volcanoes go way back. Dating back to ancient times, people have lived near volcanoes, often holding them to be sacred. By the 1840s, Kilauea was a popular tourist attraction. While some 2.6 million people visit Kilauea each year, the park was closed on May 11th due to the dangers of the eruption. Because while it might be pretty, death by lava isn't worth it for the gram. Number 5. Mount Everest. It seems only natural that the world's highest mountain peak would be on the list. Towering 20,029 feet above Earth's surface, Mount Everest has been surveyed since at least the early 18th century by the Qing Empire. Back then, it was referred to as Mount Chomolungma. By the 1890s, the British were like, hey, I bet we can climb this really dangerous mountain. And while there were many expeditions up the mountain, it wasn't until 1953 that Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay reached the summit. They were the first known climbers to reach the summit anyway. Ever since, reaching the summit has been proven possible. Thousands of attempts have been made. Harsh elements such as freezing wind often make for challenging conditions. Since the mountain reaches up into the stratosphere, climbers find themselves battling high-speed winds from the jet stream. These winds can reach up to 175 miles per hour. A lack of oxygen is also a challenge, and climbers often require oxygen tanks not to die. Avalanches, falling rocks, whiteouts, frostnip, pneumonia, and somewhat surprisingly dehydration are all common risks associated with climbing Mount Everest. It's estimated that about 5% of climbers die each year making this dangerous journey. So if you decide to go, just be careful. Number 4. Mont Blanc. While it's not as high as Mount Everest, Mont Blanc is nothing to sneeze at. In fact, some might say it's more dangerous than Mount Everest. As the highest peak of the Alps, many climbers try to summit the mountain each year. On average, about 100 people die each year trying to make this journey. By some estimates, up to 8,000 people have died trying to scale Mont Blanc, which would make it the deadliest mountain of all time. In 2012, 11 people died just days apart in 2 separate incidents. Writing for The Atlantic, Lane Wallace pointed out that tour guides often sell Mont Blanc as more of a long walk than an actual expedition. That often attracts people who aren't experienced enough to handle this sort of climb. Given that the mountain is actually easy at the get-go, you get a lot of people climbing at the same time. This makes for a very dangerous situation, as you often have a lack of qualified guides and footholds for naive climbers to get to the peak safely. Rapid changes in the weather also increase the odds of an avalanche happening, which isn't awesome for climbers. Other elements such as the cold and high altitude pose risks. Inexperienced climbers often deal with altitude sickness, which induces nausea, vomiting, and insomnia, posing serious health risks. In short, the influx of inexperienced climbers unable to deal with the hazards associated with such a climb make for a very dangerous climb. Number 3. Half Dome. It's one of the most iconic features in one of the most iconic national parks in the United States. So it actually makes a lot of sense that the Half Dome of Yosemite National Park would be a popular tourist attraction. Back in the 1870s, The dome was described as perfectly inaccessible, so naturally people tried to climb it. In 1875, a fellow by the name of George A. Anderson proved it actually wasn't inaccessible. He climbed the massive rock formation by drilling spikes into the smooth granite. These days, thousands make the trek to the top each year via cable route, but due to the dangers of climbing, anyone who wants to make the climb must get a permit from the park. Since the erection of the cable route, 6 people have fallen to their death, including one in May of 2018. That number seems low given some of the other dangers that greet climbers. Rock falls, for instance, can prove to be very hazardous. In 2015, National Geographic reported that so much rock fell from the north face of the mountain that the route had changed dramatically. Some wonder if the influx of climbers each year has caused the rockfall. Number 2. Praia de Boa Viagem. Each summer, tons and tons of people journey to the beach. The warm sun, cool ocean breeze, the surf, and half-naked eye candy are just a few of the perks for making such a trek. And Brazil is renowned for some of their beaches. One potential downside? Sharks. Granted, we may never be subjected to a massive great white shark wreaking havoc on Amity Island, shark attacks are still a thing. Praia de Boa Viagem in Brazil is one of the most shark-infested beaches in the world. Despite the beauty of the beach, it's considered one of the most dangerous places to swim. First of all, aggressive shark species such as bull and tiger sharks already roam the waters off the coast of Recife. Then, in the 70s, a port was built nearby. According to the BBC, the construction of Port Suape interrupted migratory, hunting, and breeding patterns for the sharks. Tiger sharks, for instance, often migrate long distances and follow behind ships to catch debris thrown off. With more ships going into coastal waters that are home to millions of people, well, that's a recipe for disaster. Since the 80s, at least 20 known fatal attacks have occurred, and more than 50 attacks in total have taken place. So the lesson here is simple. Be careful where you build your ports. And if you happen to be at Praia de Boa Viagem in Brazil, maybe just stick to lounging and building sandcastles. Number 1. Mount Huashan. Near the city of Xi'an in China is one of the country's most significant mountains, Mount Huashan, or Hua. As one of the 5 great mountains of China, it holds a lot of cultural and religious significance to the Chinese people. The mountain is home to many Taoist temples, some of which date back to the 2nd century BC. There's also this very dangerous hiking route that virtually everyone should avoid. Even with moderate safety measures, this hike isn't to be taken lightly. One part of the trail, for instance, is known as the plank walk. This is literally just a small plank hovering over a valley and bending around a cliff. Hikers have only a chain attached to a harness to keep them from falling to certain death. So if you trust an old harness and ancient Chinese engineering, maybe this hike is for you. Other scary trails have scary names like Black Dragon Ridge, 1,000-foot Precipice, and 100-foot Crevice. And while people have been making the pilgrimage to the summits of the mountain's 5 peaks for thousands of years, there are rumors that up to 100 people die each year. As unsubstantiated as these claims may be, it's still very dangerous. Thrill seekers will be met by cool little attractions like the Chess Pavilion and a tea shop on the mountain's southern peak. So if you want to risk life and limb for a cup of tea and a game of chess, go crazy. Here's what's next.
Lima is considered to be very high. Namibia, which uses several metrics to measure crime in cities around the world, rates Lima at an 82.14.
This puts it on the higher end of the spectrum, almost the highest actually, because the scale goes from 0 to 100. 0 being no crime, 100 being an absolute hellhole. As is often the